Alright guys, so today is my first time doing a screencast and face cam at the same time, so we'll see how this works. You should see in front of you on the board for our bell ringer the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. You'll see there's a little vocab help. Unalienable, a word used in the preamble, means unable to be taken away from or given away by the possessor. So this means when they're talking about unalienable rights, that there's basic human rights that can't or shouldn't be infringed upon by others. So go ahead and read the preamble and then go ahead and answer the questions that follow it. Isabel and Sean, you guys can work with your partners next to you who can read it aloud, and then you guys can discuss that way. And then Sean, you can go ahead and answer the questions using your tablet. So read the preamble, describe in your own words what it means for all men to be created equal. Then compare your interpretation with your partner next to you, and what was similar or different about what each of you said about what it means to be equal. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and discuss as a class if it's possible for something to be separate but equal. So we'll go ahead and do that. And now that we've had our discussion, we're going to go ahead and I'll briefly just talk to you about some of the things that we've already covered. So Jim Crow laws, we already talked about. Those were based on a stage show character during the 1800s that negatively portrayed African Americans as kind of clowns or bumbling fools. And that term Jim Crow, we saw some images of Jim Crows in the past, and that name or that term kind of came to apply to laws that were intended to restrict social contact or interaction between white people and people of other races, not just African Americans. And so these laws that were in these communities were intended, to separate the races and to limit the amount of contact that they had. So I have some examples of these Jim Crow laws that I will go ahead and pull over here so that you can see them. It's kind of big, but you should be able to understand. Can I have you, student, please read the first one aloud, and then we'll kind of go through all of them and discuss, do we think that these seem fair and reasonable? They seem kind of silly. What are your thoughts about each of these different laws? I'll go ahead and get rid of that. And then we're going to talk today about segregation, and the word segregate means to separate or divide. It can apply to anything. You could segregate vegetables at the grocery store, but most of the time when people are talking about it and use this term, they're referring to the separation of the races. And in our case, we're going to go ahead and talk about how this applied to schooling and public education in America. This is about students your age and what they might have experienced or faced. So hopefully you can kind of get an idea of what people your age were facing and how challenging that could have been. So segregation laws were in effect, these Jim Crow laws, in communities throughout America, but they didn't necessarily have a federal support for them, so there wasn't like one overarching law that allowed these segregation laws until 1896, when the U.S. Supreme Court stated that you could legally segregate public areas, and that included schools. So this case was called Plessy v. Ferguson. It started with a black man who wanted to ride in like a trolley carriage for white people, and he was arrested, and then they tried to determine whether or not it was fair to have separate trolley carriages based on race. And this court ruling in 1896 determined that yes, as long as the carriages or schools or whatever it is that they or wanting to segregate was equal, then it wasn't considered discrimination. So yeah, that came about in 1896, so about 30 years after the Civil War, and that was in effect for quite some time. Not until the 1950s was that overturned. So within my parents' lifetime. So anyway, today, yeah, we're going to focus specifically on schools, and we're going to go ahead and work with our documents today. You should each have a packet in front of you, and it should have a graphic organizer that looks something like this. So what I want you to do in filling out this graphic organizer with each of these documents is tell me what the document is, the source. We've already done sourcing before in previous classes, so you know who wrote it, what year, what publication, or just any of the background information about why this document was produced or how it was produced. And then you're just going to do basic observations and inferences, because today we're just going to be looking at pictures. So in the observations column, just write down in a bullet point list, pretty basic, what it is that you see. And then from there, we'll go ahead and make some inferences about what these things mean, what your observations might mean on a deeper level. So I'll go ahead and model it for you guys so you kind of know what I am expecting. So I'm going to go ahead and do this image. Let me move this over here. Okay, so this is a political cartoon called One Less Vote by Thomas Nast. I don't know anything about him, but I'm going to go ahead and put him down in my sourcing column. Harper's Weekly I know is a major publication. And then August 8th, 1868. So I know from my background knowledge that the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote, was ratified in 1870. So this might have been leading up to that, kind of some contention about people were expressing their opinions about whether or not they thought that black men should vote. So I'm just going to do some basic observations. I see here a black man lying on his back. Looks like maybe there's blood coming out of his head. He's in kind of an alleyway, or there's like some rubble around him. On the wall I see writing. It says Negro killed. Seymour ratification. I'm not sure what that means, but it might have to do with ratifying the 15th Amendment. And then I see KKK, and we've already talked about the Ku Klux Klan and their influence in the Civil Rights Movement. And the title of this is One Vote Less. So that tells me that it has something to do with people wanting to restrict the vote for black men. So those are my basic observations, just exactly what I see. I see a man, I see these words, and you know, it's dark, and he's in some rubble, and those kinds of things. And then on my inferences side of the chart, I'm going to go ahead and kind of develop what maybe the author was trying to express. So we'll go a little deeper and say, okay, so this is, leading up to the ratification of the 15th Amendment. Maybe people are trying to say that they don't want black men voting and that they'll do anything to stop them, even if it's illegal, like, you know, killing someone or injuring them. So that's something that we should take into account. And the writing on the wall has something to do, KKK, racist organization. And so that kind of gives me, I'm able to use what I have seen to kind of make some inferences about what it might mean and what people at the time were feeling. So now that I've done that for you, I want you to go ahead and do two with your partners. So first we're going to do an image of people supporting integration, and then an image of people supporting segregation. And those should look something like this. So here's your integration picture. I want you to just tell me what you see. I tend to just go left to right on here. And you'll go ahead and do this with a partner. So I want you and the person next to you to work on these two images. So this first one, and then the second one. Just this right here. just tell me what you see. What types of people? What are their signs saying? What kind of inferences then from your observations can you make with your partner? So do that together. And okay, now that you've done that with your partner, we'll go ahead and have you do 2 more, and this time do these independently. We'll come back together and talk about them as a class. So these are 2 different images of school classrooms. So here's one that you'll be looking at that should be in your packet, and then here's the second one. So I want you to do the observation and inference charts with these 2 images, and then we'll come back together and talk about them. Okay, now that you've done that, we're going to go ahead and do a jigsaw activity. So all of this that we're talking about is leading up to a court case called Brown v. Board of Education. And this is something that you hear throughout the rest of your life, but you should know that this major court case was the culmination of 5 like smaller court cases that came together to form this Supreme Court ruling. So I've separated you into 5 separate groups for each of the different cases, and there's 4 people in each group. There should be a reader, so this person just reads the packet that's in front of you. A clarifier, that person needs to look up any words in the dictionary that the group doesn't understand, or help us answer any questions if your group has questions. A summarizer, this person needs to just repeat in their own words what you guys are reading. And then a scribe, and this person is going to go ahead and write down the year of the case, where it was, and what were some of the major details of that case. So go ahead and do that, and then we're going to get a chance to teach one another about the cases that we're learning. So you have the packet, and then you also have your netbook or Chromebook in front of you, so go ahead and use that. And now, once you've completed that, we'll give you the chance to teach your other groups about that, and then we'll do our closing discussion. And so closing discussion questions would be, how did Jim Crow laws affect African Americans? In what ways was education separate but not equal? How did Brown v. Board of Education come about? And then we're going to go ahead and tell you about your final exam. Okay, so here's your rubric for your upcoming essay exam, which will be at the end of this unit. Here's the rubric just so you understand kind of what we're expecting of you. And in terms of accommodations for our other students, for James, the essay prompt will be read aloud, and he will be able to complete the exam in the library or the resource center. Sean can take the exam at home to allow for reduced writing and extended time and reduced test anxiety. And then Brittany will be given extended time and can have the directions read aloud to her if she'd like. And then Isabel will be allowed to perform the assessment orally with me during a flex period or something like that. So hopefully, I covered it all. Thanks everybody for a great lesson. Hope you are better able to understand some of the court cases and how laws affected people involved in the civil rights movement. We're going to talk about more of them in the coming days, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of how important this movement was and what people were doing to improve it. So thanks.